So heavy or light weights for maximum muscle growth? The answer is actually going to matter way more than you think, especially if you're short on time. So the most recent data actually reveals the answer to this, and that's ultimately that both light weights and heavy weights are both going to build muscle. But beyond this, the bigger question is actually which is going to build more muscle for you. Because believe it or not, and I don't hear anyone talking about this, there is a difference, and it's going to matter which one that you pick. So to do that, we actually have to first understand what's happening when your body's building muscle. So to build muscle with either light or heavy weights, the bottom line is that the intensity has to be significant enough. You've got to be getting close to the point at which if you try to lift that weight again, it's just not going to move. And the studies have shown now that as long as you're lifting with that amount of intensity, anywhere from like 2 to 30 reps is going to effectively build muscle for you. But the higher the reps, this now presents a problem with the workouts just taking way too long. But I want to give you a solution to that in just a minute. So when you're lifting at that RPE, that rate of perceived exertion, which again is really just getting close to the point at which you can't lift the weight anymore, what's happening is you're sending a stimulus to your body that it can't overcome, it can't withstand it. And this is where the real magic happens, and it just, honestly, it blows me away because this is what our body does so well. When it can't overcome that stimulus, it now has to add lean tissue to our body, get more efficient at that movement so that it can overcome that the next time you encounter that stimulus. But essentially over time, this will start to slow down as our body just becomes, used to that movement. It gets really efficient at it and very good at it. And that's honestly where we then need to introduce a novel stimulus, something new. Okay. So this is where that idea of muscle confusion came from. But the problem is that although muscle confusion is good to an extent, people were just taking it way too far and confusing the muscle too much. But what we really need is just consistency in our training so that we can actually determine if our strength is increasing. And then within that, sprinkling in some novel and new ways of training. But you can watch all of the videos out there on this topic, which I have, and no one is really bringing up this question. But here is actually where it's gonna matter for you. So think about your training. I mean, what are you typically doing? Are you doing like a 5x5 type program typically, or do you tend to stay within the 8 to 12 rep range for hypertrophy? Or are you doing like a circuit style training where you're doing 20 or more reps per set? Now, based on that, the best option for you is to actually do the one that you haven't been doing. And I want you to do that for at least 3 to 4 weeks. Now that is actually gonna send your body a new signal. And that is actually gonna send your body a new signal to build muscle with a new type of stimulus, whether it be lifting that low rep range, really getting a strength adaptation, or maybe more of a muscle fiber growth, hypertrophy rep range, or maybe it's a muscular endurance rep range with those really high reps. But this still leaves the question of how do you make this work if you want to get the most amount of muscle for the least amount of time, which I always like to. But if you're short on time, the best way to actually do this is to learn from the experts who show you how to periodize your training in the most efficient way possible. Now, most of the fitness experts that talk about periodization, which is essentially it's just varying up your training to allow for some ebbs and flows and some changes that provide that novel stimulus. But most of the fitness experts out there just make this, in my opinion, way too complex. 60% of your 1 rep max down to 80% of this, and then 9% of that, and then jump back down to, anyways. It's just too much. It's too much for me, and it's unnecessary. You really don't need this, especially if you're just looking to build a bunch of muscle and to stay as lean as possible. So that's why I found the simplest way to do this is that for 3 to 5 weeks, I simply do anywhere from 1 or 2 to like 7 reps. Focus on longer rest periods because it's gonna be a more taxing movement on your body. You need a little more rest time in between each set. Then for 3 to 5 weeks, I'll do like a 7 to 12 rep range, more hypertrophy focus and moderate rest periods in between each set. And then for the next 3 to 5 weeks, I'll do somewhere in the range of like 20 to 30 reps with really short rest periods in between each set. But here's actually the little secret that will save you a ton of time, because in order to get that muscular endurance benefit from those higher rep ranges, you don't need to be doing 30 reps. 30 reps is just the end of the parameters that they found within studies. You can still get these same benefits by sticking somewhere in like that 15 to 20 rep range, which is what I tend to do because I don't have a ton of time to waste when I'm in the gym. I gotta get in there, get it done, and get out. But even beyond that, I actually spend the most of my time within that like 3 to 12 rep range, mostly because it's just what I enjoy the most. And what you enjoy the most is what you're going to stick with way longer. But even more important than this is to actually realize that during these high rep workouts, you really don't need to be hammering your body with like 10 different exercises just to be able to build muscle. Less is way more. So all you really need to do is just find yourself a well-structured program or check out this one right up over here. And as always, go get strong, but first go give your kids a hug like I'm about to go do, because I think family matters more. And I'll see you over here on the next video.